Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic and a medium. And today I'm super happy to have a new astrologer on my screen with me today, Dabney Lawless. You guys are going to love her. I'm telling you, whatever you planned on doing, just cancel it. Just cancel it because you're going to need to hear what she has to say, because what she just said to me was something like, what's really going on? And why are we going through this? That's what I'm going to talk about. I'm like, yeah, I want to know myself. Like, I'm going to get some popcorn and, like, just get comfortable. So she is going to tell us what's going on and why we're really going through this as far as astrology goes. Thank you so much, Dabney, for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Susan. So nice to be here with you. I'm very excited to chat with you.
I know it's exciting. It's a very turbulent time right now we're in, but what I think is that Dabney's going to help us understand the turbulence, right? Like when the pilot comes on and says, "Fasten your seatbelts, we're just going through some turbulence." That helps, right? Instead of nobody saying anything and it's dark out and you don't know if the plane is going to crash, right? So we're not gonna let you do that. We're going to tell you why things are happening, and so you can understand education is power. So go
Yep.
ahead, let us know.
Good.
Tell us
All
what's up.
right. So I want to talk about the astrology of what's been happening actually for over a decade now. So we've all been in the thick of Pluto in Capricorn. So I'm going to, use some sort of language that is astrological, Babylonian, but then I'm going to break it down so it makes sense to everybody. So in 2008, Pluto went from the sign of Sagittarius into Capricorn. So let's back up even a little bit before Obama was elected. And in 2008, there was kind of Sagittarius is all about exuberance and like overconfidence and just kind of, dogma, right? So that's when we had the buy properties like on credit and like everything's going to work out. And there was just kind of this over exuberance. And then Pluto moved into Capricorn in 2008 and everything came to a screeching halt. So Capricorn rules everything that has to do with like power. So power, courts, police, politicians, bankers, government, anybody that has a tremendous amount of power is Capricorn energy. Okay. Pluto energy there's Pluto in all of our charts, but what we're talking about here is called mundane astrology. And so what I'm looking at is how this affects us collectively. Okay. And so Pluto, it's a slow moving planet, but wherever Pluto is in your personal chart and how it's interacting with your chart, but also collectively in this mundane, like how it's interacting with the United States, Pluto is about transformation. And a lot of times it's about annihilation. So we have to see the underbelly, the shadow, the difficulty, the things that have gone wrong. Right. And then only then can you, once you shine a light under the house and you see all the cobwebs and the leaks, and then you can kind of work on the foundation. So in 2008, Pluto moved into Capricorn. And that is when we really started seeing things start to, the foundation wobble in our country. Right? It wasn't like an overnight thing, but there was kind of this rising up of energy where people were recognizing that the bankers were not being punished, but people were losing their homes. Okay. So the people were sort of getting screwed over where we're saving the banks. We're saving, the institutions, the gatekeepers, the power holders. The power holders continued to get more powerful, whereas the people started to struggle. And that's when you see, even a further acceleration of wealth inequality around this time. Now that's been going on for, 40 plus years, but there was like an acceleration. So when, you hear the word plutocracy, Pluto is in the word plutocracy. So we suddenly are becoming a plutocracy where the billionaires are the ones that have all the power. Right. And so 50% of the people in this, 50% of the billionaires, the 1%, one percenters, own 50% of all the wealth in the country. That was not the case even a decade ago, even before COVID. So this is accelerated through this time. And this is also when you start to see tremendous gerrymandering, okay? Everything changed, even though the people, like think about the 2016 election, the popular vote went to Hillary. But because of old, outdated legacy laws and constitution that was built for gentrified landowner white men, where women couldn't vote and people of color couldn't vote. So it's kind of like Pluto saying, like, yeah, do you want to see what that shows you? Because this is what you get. So another thing that Pluto and Capricorn rules is older people. So it on the high side of Pluto in Capricorn, you have wisdom, experience, you have people that understand the system, okay? But the dark side, which Pluto often brings out, is you have kind of people in the system unwilling to step aside, right? And you have people who are just power grabbing like crazy, like Mitch McConnell being unwilling to give Merrick Garland a Supreme Court seat. And, some people like Dianne Feinstein and Ruth Bader Ginsburg and Chuck Grassley and even Biden and Trump, elderly people unwilling to step aside for the new generation because they are so like power hungry. They're still also like ready to, take the reins and just say, I'm not letting go. So an unwillingness to sort of let go. So where we are now, so Pluto's been in Capricorn since 2008. It dipped into Aquarius last spring. Anyway, I don't have the timing exact, but the last time Pluto dipped into Aquarius, Trump got indicted. So just keep that in mind, okay?
Keep that in mind.
Then it went back into Capricorn for a while this year. And now it's been back in Aquarius and Trump got convicted, okay? So Aquarius is a totally different energy. So the last time Pluto was in Aquarius was during the Revolutionary War here in America. So 1775 to 1783. Wow. The Declaration of Independence was signed under Pluto in Capricorn, but going into Aquarius. And so we are in this what's called a Pluto return. I think you've had other astrologers on that have talked about that. But basically what that says is like, are you going to be a better country? Are you going to come out of this better, or are you going to fall? And in some ways we've been doing a good job. I think the people have been doing a good job, but our leaders have not been doing a good job because there's sort of this unwillingness to hear the people. And Pluto in Aquarius is all about power to the people. So the unfortunate news, I hate to break it to everybody, is that Pluto is going back into Capricorn for a little spell right around the election. So I think at the end of the summer through the fall, Pluto's back in Capricorn for the final cleanup. Okay, so this is part of the chaos that we have coming up. But then in January, it goes into Aquarius for the next 30 years. So Susan, a lot of change is coming. Uranus, there's going to be our Uranus return. So that's a big thing that we can talk about. We maybe even want to talk about that on another time together. But that is also tremendous upheaval within our...
When does that happen?
That is 2026 through 2033.
Okay. Yeah, we can talk about that. We need to, because I feel like the house is on fire. That's kind of what I feel like is. And so what I want to talk about, so yeah, I don't want to interrupt you. So go forth and prosper, and then I'll circle back with some questions.
Okay, that sounds good. Okay, so we've got Pluto going into Aquarius. So again, Pluto is annihilation, shining a light on where things are no longer working. And a lot of times it's very painful. A Pluto process is very painful, but you come out the other side in a much better place if you get it right, if you really do the hard work, which I think a lot of us are doing the hard work of this Pluto in Capricorn. I know for me personally, and this is where I want to definitely have people understand, if you come get a reading from me, Pluto in your personal chart may be doing something completely different than it's doing in the collective chart, right? And it's in Capricorn, but that might be a positive thing for you. Like my life has flourished over the past 10 years. Whereas, I do think our country has struggled tremendously.
Yeah.
And I think, people have been kind of depressed. And I think there's a gloom about Pluto and Capricorn where it feels hopeless. And so having the Pluto moving into Aquarius, I think is going to be a new, fresh energy where people are going to be energized, and we're not going to see the levels of corruption that we have been seeing. So, Pluto in Aquarius, here's a perfect, example of this. There was the Met Gala recently, and, some young celebrity dressed up as Marie Antoinette. And there was protesters of the gala outside, and she said, "Oh, let them eat cake." And obviously she was being kind of cheeky, but at the same time, it's very reminiscent of like what's coming down, because when Pluto was in Aquarius last time, there was the Revolutionary War here in America, but also the French Revolution. Right. And that's when democracy really took hold across the world. So I think it's very important for everybody to sort of understand that, I don't believe that 45 is going to win again. I don't. I believe that there's going to be a lot of chaos between now and then. And I don't even know who's going to be running or if the election day is going to be the election day. I was not gifted with the psychic abilities that you were, but from an astrological standpoint, I do foresee bumpy months ahead. But let's just say, like, worst case scenario, 45 prevails. His astrology looks good around the election. I'm not going to lie. It looks horrible next spring, because this is not ultimately what's going to happen. What's ultimately going to happen is we're going to see like the rise of unions. We're going to see the rise of people taking power back. We've got a whole new batch of younger politicians that are stepping up, like Jasmine Crockett and like just a ton of really like Moskowitz, like people that are like understanding that we're playing a new game. And they're stepping into the arena, and they're not playing by the old rules, which is very Pluto and Capricorn. So I see things, I see potentially that the ERA, the Equal Rights Amendment, will get passed. Will finally be adopted. I see an updated constitution. I see potentially some Supreme Court term limits, which is well overdue. So another piece of this puzzle, and I'll try to make this quick, is Pisces has Neptune has been in Pisces. Okay, so what that means, the entire time that Neptune has been in Pisces since 2012. Wow, that's when we really saw the rise of social media. And that's when we really started seeing fake news and confusion and people not knowing who to trust, where to turn for their information. Our collective experience that we were kind of all Americans, we were all on the same side, everything began to dissolve around that time, where it didn't really make any sense. Like, I remember being in New Orleans with my family and seeing somebody with like a poster of Obama with like a Hitler mustache. And I was so confused, like, where is that coming from? Like, what are you ingesting? Like, where is this information coming from? And so this is kind of this time where people have just been very confused, somewhat checked out, in a fog, delusion, like really, the positive side, I think there's been somewhat of a rise in empathy in those of us that are capable of empathy, which but, we've also, like, I think I mentioned to you, like, the terms like narcissist came into the lexicon. Like, people have known about narcissists for a long time, but it wasn't like a well-known thing that people talked about. But at the same time, there was also, addiction skyrocketing with fentanyl and the opioid crisis. And so, you have this kind of just atmosphere ripe for people to kind of stick their head in the sands and check out and just believe what they want to believe. Very cult like, right? Like kind of like looking for a strong leader to kind of guide them. But that's going to shift too. We're going to be moving next year into Neptune and Aries, which is a totally different energy where people are going to start to wake up. So we're kind of in the final throes of what we've been dealing with since 45 came on the scene. And he is just a personification of the worst of everything about Americans. You know, the glitz, the glamour, you know, the faux charisma, but also the just like loud, obnoxious, like pushing people out of the way, power at all costs, capitalism gone awry, uncaring. So that's the sort of shadow piece that we need to work on. So I think that's my spiel. I hope that helps break down why we've been feeling what we've been feeling and give some degree of hope. I don't think it's all going to be roses because Pluto's always a challenge wherever we go. And I think Pluto in Aquarius, we're going to start to really have to deal with like AI. And I think a lot of these challenges where we're dealing with corrupt politicians, I think we're going to be dealing with like technology gone awry. So, you know, that's kind of but that's for another day. Right now,
that's for another day.
About getting
Honestly,
through this time.
Yes, thank you so much, Dabney. What I feel like is let's just get through the next 6 months. Like I don't even know why the guides keep saying 6 months because well, we're in June, so that's basically the end of the year, right? Okay, so right, that's what they're saying. Okay. My question is wow. So yeah, this is a wow. I mean, it makes sense. Like now I always wanted to know why were people in this fog? Like why were people not woken up? And then you mentioned the cult, that the cult of personality energy. This all makes sense, right? And 45 is our shadow. He's our lesson. Like this is the worst bits of America. He's embodied them and he's put them on the big screen for the whole world, including us to see and learn our lessons. The thing that I want to see, and I know that astrology is a science, and you're not going to be able to maybe just dial this into your astrology encyclopedia brain, but what would you say as far as like when you see chaos? It's interesting because astrology is a science. You guys dial into like a date, like for instance, the convention or the election. And you told me the election is a terrible date. Obviously, they didn't consult an astrologer because the election, it's like, well, you know, sometimes you just have to do things on a date that is a bad date, right? I mean, sometimes you just have to do it.
Right.
Yeah, it's in our Constitution. We have to do it. So why do you think it's a bad date? Like what gives you the heebie-jeebies astrologically about that?
Oh, you know, I don't have the chart in front of me, but I will. What I remember seeing was just a lot of things in retrograde. I remember just this feeling when I looked at the chart that like we're not going to have clarity. So, and it's also this feeling of like everything is ending right now and new things are beginning. And it would have been much better to have like the clear cut beginnings begin something new being born. And yet we're still kind of stuck in the mud with, you know, the energy that we've been dealing with. And, you know, I know we talked about the media complicity in all of this. And what's interesting is you see, you know, the media really did make this man who he is, 45. You know, he wasn't naturally successful. He had a ghostwriter of a book that made up a bunch of stuff that made it seem like it. And then, you know, I've worked in media for over 20 years and I've been on TV sets. I've been in, you know, like where everything is fake and it's all constructed. And that's so interesting to me to see how they build narratives around somebody like him and somebody like Biden. And, you know, the reality is Biden hasn't worked the media very well. But 45 knows just how to work it. Like he is an actor. That, really by trade, that is what he is somebody that knows how to work the media, even if it means like being a serial liar. But the media doesn't care. They just want, and they're part of this Pluto and Capricorn story as well. And so if you look and see the energy around 45 in 2016 was kind of undeniable. Like it was really kind of interestingly undeniable. It started to fade by 2020, like when people saw who he really was. And it really has continued to fade. He doesn't have the support that he once did. People do know who he is. And so, but when he was convicted, you didn't see like a ton of media saying that he should step down. Why was, when he was convicted of being a con and, ripping off our country, why would there not editorials like wall to wall saying that the GOP needs to replace him? And then Biden has one bad debate, and that's all you read on the aggregates, the news aggregates. It's like replace, 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 replace. So it's really kind of a stacked, it's an uneven stacked playing field. And there's so much synchronicity about what's been going on, because I know your viewers, they understand that things do happen for a reason, and we don't always know why. And, you think about Biden's son, Beau, dying. Had he not died, Biden would have run in 2016. He would have cleaned house, and he would have been in there for 8 years, and we would have had a completely different makeup of our Supreme Court. And so, had Hillary not caught pneumonia and the media not like played that on a loop over and over again, had James Comey not come out and said, they're like, oh, there's some new scandal 2 days before, which was all BS.
Right.
Citizens United, I want to highlight that is probably the most important thing that has happened in the past decade, where it basically said that corporations are people, and they can donate to politicians however they want. Without Citizens United, you wouldn't have had 45. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have had the gerrymandering. You wouldn't have had the control, because the bottom line is the people are much more liberal in their politics, but they're being sold a narrative by billionaires that own these media outlets, and they're manipulating all of us, because people are manipulated by what they see daily on the news, because there was a time where we all shared a narrative, and that narrative has now been shattered. So we don't have that responsibility in ethics and journalism the way we once did. We have corporate powers and, dictating. Journalists may still be liberal at heart, but those journalists are losing their jobs. So.
Yeah. Do you see Aquarius? Do you see next year, 25, making a dent, changing media?
I do. I think, okay, so this is slightly depressing. So sorry, everyone. But I think AI is going to revitalize journalism, or it's going to revitalize media. They're going to get more money because they don't need people as much.
Oh, they're just going to lay off. Okay.
They're just going to continue to consolidate. People, you won't, it's going to look incredibly different. And like I said, I think this sort of AI where you can't tell if that's a real person or if that's, a bot delivering the news.
Right.
So it's really going to narrow down who, but at the same time, it's kind of like you push people only so far.
Yeah.
And then things change. So I do see like a lot of protesting. I see a lot of, like I said, I see a lot of good things too, because we're going to take back control of power. But in order to do that, we need a whole new generation of people who understand the current reality that we're not living in, 1992 anymore, where that was its own reality that people were reacting to. And we just need a new, fresh take on how we're going to get back to sanity.
So this really helped me. What you were talking about really helped me. And then I also had like a whole bunch of information drop into my brain. And I know you're a media person. What movie or show was it that they're giving me chills that Robin Williams said "Good Morning Vietnam" or "Good Morning"? Was that a movie or a show?
Yeah, yeah, I
Was
think
he
it was,
broadcasting from some place like a war or something? Why
yeah,
was he?
no, he was a broadcaster during the Vietnam War. I haven't seen that movie in forever. I think might have been called Good Morning Vietnam.
Okay. So
So,
here's why they were showing me that because what I would say to what you're seeing astrologically and what I can do is read people's energy, right? Like so it kind of it can kind of fit together. What I see is that people are going to say, I want the real thing. I don't even, maybe that's a bot. I don't even care. I'd rather watch Ron broadcasting from his living room with his cat on his lap telling me about that. You're going to see the dissolution of those corporate. I even think you're going to see the dissolution of Hollywood to a bigger degree because people are going to say, I'm just going to be a YouTuber. I'm going to put my movie on YouTube. I see YouTube being Netflix. I see everything breaking down. So when they show me Robin Williams, it's like outside of the bounds, right? Like outside of the bounds of what the United States says you can do. I'm just a dude, gone rogue. Basically, that's it, right? So what you see is the science, which is these are the screws that are going to be applied to the people. And what I can add is this is how I think the people might react. And then when you were talking, I got a better sense. I've been trying to figure this out. I really have been trying. So I think you helped me understand it. This, because you think, okay, we're in Capricorn, and then we're going to, and you did a great job of describing that. And then we're going to go into Aquarius, which I think generally, I shouldn't do this, but I generally call it power to the people because it's really more than that, but that's kind of what I call it. And I was thinking, well, why all the chaos? Because what I see is people in the streets. I kind of see mayhem. And I've been talking about this for a long time. Like I see the doctors in the streets. I see the nurses. I see the teachers. I see students, kids, older people. I mean, everybody's got a beef and everybody's in the streets. So I'm like, well, why? But you really elucidated it for me when you said there's the power structure. Even though Capricorn is no longer in control, the power structure is still there. It's not going to go away. It's not just going to be poof. They're going to hold on to their money. They're going to hold on to their profits, and they're going to hold on to their way of life, which you did talk about but in this new way of, we don't care what the people think. We're the oligarchs. We're the plutocracy. We're going to strong arm this situation. And I'll just say this because I swear to God, this is happening faster than I thought it was going to. That makes sense for my vision of Kamala Harris being president, because they told me way back when Joe picked her as VP, they said she will be president. She will be the law and order president. She's not going to be popular. She will be fair. And I said, well, why isn't she going to be popular? And they showed me her. I mean, this is broad strokes, okay, but basically putting the left in jail, putting the right in jail. Like, if you're going to get in the streets and mix it up, then I'm going to have the DOJ, I'm going to have the powers that be are going to put you all in jail. I don't care if you say, but I'm on the right side of this issue, right? Like, I'm trying to protect our rights. She's not going to care. She's very black and white. You broke the law, you're going to jail. So in that way, she's the medicine that we're going to need. We've got to take this medicine. We can't no longer have somebody give the right a pass or give the left a pass. We just got to get it together. And I really feel like this is what you're describing. But I mean, I don't know. This is what they've been telling me.
Change tremendously. So there is going to be the rise of women and people of color. And I love what you were saying about, this is, you see Midas touch, and you see these other kind of upstarts that are eclipsing the legacy.
Yes.
So throughout history, people find a way to figure things out, right? And so we are all dealing with the fallout and the actual repercussions of people in power not caring about the people. There's floods, very Neptune in Pisces, right? That's very Neptune in Pisces.
Wow.
There's floods in the Midwest that are destroying people's lives, okay? That is a direct result of climate change. We see increasing weather events. And the more I read an article the other day about like the United Arab Emirates and Kuwait and, Qatar, all these places that they're going to be like regularly over 130 degrees. Now, these are the places that were the epicenter of oil. Okay, I also read an article about how they think they have not those countries, but here in the US, there was like a big breakthrough with utilizing heat for energy, like the, natural resources and heat. So I think that there's going to be big changes coming with climate change. I think we are sort of feeling the like little repercussions of it. And as it gets bigger, there's going to be no choice but to address it. And that's the thing that Pluto and Aquarius is going to usher in, is the like, you have no choice, because if you don't address this, big repercussions. Right. And so I think that's where the people start to, have their own video cameras. And like you said, like more YouTube channel, more astrologers, more people, more psychics, more people coming out and speaking their mind, and people looking for alternate voices. And I 100% agree with you that they are going to want real people. I just read another headline about how they're going to use like a legendary sports commentator, and they're using his voice, an AI version of his voice for like the daily roundups of like what's happening at the Olympics.
Wow.
And
Wow.
yeah, it was like Al Michaels or something like someone that we've
Wow.
all grown up with and lived with and trusted as like
Wow.
somebody who
Wow.
would do the commentary, and now it's an AI version of his voice.
Is that guy still alive?
I didn't read the article. I just looked at the headline.
They've gotten in trouble for using people's voices that are still alive.
No, he is still alive because he gave permission. I apologize, because that was the headline, was how he gave permission, like how they got permission from him to use his voice. And he was like, this is so cool. But the rest of us out here, and I think even the younger generation is going to say, like, that isn't what we signed up for. Like, we want human connection. And so I think there is going to be kind of this science fiction-y sort of element of the next decade or two. But I do think if we hone in on the next 6 months, just thinking of it as a cleanup time, like we've got to clean up the mess that we've made. And I don't mean you and your viewers or me. We didn't make this mess. Let's be very clear. We didn't make this mess, but our loved ones did, like people we know, our neighbors did. And like some of them are waking up, but not enough of them. And that's why it's nice to have your voice out here, so we can help educate people that like, yeah, this has big implications. The Supreme Court taking away our rights one after the other, making bribery legal. People aren't going to stand for that. Now, they might stand for it right now, but once it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, that's when they wake up.
Our problem is we see it now. That's the biggest problem, is we see it right now, and those people are still asleep. So that Neptune moves over in 25, right? So the bottom line, I think, is that, in the next 6 months, we've got this Capricorn energy. We've got a return to this kind of the institution at all costs, almost this power hungry, power grabbing, greed kind of energy, and wrapped in around an institutional energy is what it feels like the court systems or whatever it is. Even education, I'm feeling higher education, different things like that. So there could be some headlines around that towards the end of the year as well. Like as students go back into, university and whatnot, I feel like you're going to see some headlines around that people aren't going to like. And I can see it now already. They're showing me like in Houston and in the grading, right? Like the STAR test, all this grading that isn't really working, and it's a power grab for the vouchers, the voucher schools. And so anyway, there's that stuff happening. But regardless of what happens, you guys, the thing is that it's just a period of time.
Mhm.
So also think that too. This is just a period of time. And we're going to come out the other side having cleaned it up. And we may be worse for the wear, right? I mean, if you go into a messy thing, you're going to come out maybe wearing some of that mess. You might feel like you just cleaned out a horse stall or something, or even worse, right? And you might come out smelling like caca. But we're going to go through it regardless, right? So the thing I think is we really need to try to balance our energy as we go through this, because if we're going through chaos, if we're going on this roller coaster we can't get off, any number of things can happen, guys. That I keep telling you, the only thing we can tell you is going to happen is the sun's going to come up, the sun's going to go down. Other than that, this is all probabilities. At least you can start getting used to the idea of these changes. And when something wild happens, you're going to be better situated to handle it, because you're going to be like, oh yeah, Susan and Dabney talked about this. Okay, it's happening. All right. Everybody else is going to be going crazy. And that's going to give you an opportunity to be the calm one and say, no, it's going to be fine. Here's what's going to happen, right? This is why we tell you this. Forewarned is forearmed. Did you want to add something to that, Dabney? I kind of went on a rant.
No, I love your rants, Susan. They're so fun, and like they give us what we need. And so I think there's a couple things I do want to still touch base on. One is when I talked about that synchronicity of like, Bo dying and, Hillary getting pneumonia, and then like what just happened to Joe. We have to practice what we preach, because the bottom line is there is a plan for all of this. There is a bigger plan, and we may not always understand what that is, but we have to have faith. If we give into the fear, and I'm not super new agey, like let's manifest, like millions of dollars. I'm not like that. But what I am is fear only attracts more negativity. And I see a lot of the fear, much more so in the Democratic side of things than in the GOP. And that fear then kind of amps up that negative energy, right? So what you and your listeners and me, we have to do is not give into that fear. We have to understand that there's a bigger picture playing out. I really do believe it's bigger than all of us. I do believe we are going to be okay. I don't know what that looks like. Right? It could be very dramatic. It could be, a civil war in 6 years. I have no, I can tell you what like the symbolism is. I can look at what history has said. I can also tell you that as of today, when we are recording this, Saturn is going stationary retrograde. What this means, okay, I'm just going to give you the upshot. And this is also in the sign of Pisces, is we are now being called to look inward and see what we can do individually, because individually we make a difference collectively. And this is true for Biden as well. Like, this is a time of review. This is a time of stepping back, looking inward, not necessarily being ambitious, and saying, like, I'm going to keep moving forward. Don't stop doing what you're doing, but take the time to really reflect on where you need to be going and what is in the higher good. What is the best thing from a much more spiritual place, from a much more guided place. It's an opportunity to tune into your guides. It's an opportunity to really kind of hear what Susan is saying, hear what I'm saying, that like may not be easy, but we don't know that that's not ultimately for the best. So if we just kind of have this trust, we get out of our heads, we get out of our worry, we get into our heart, we pay attention to our families, we live the kind of life that we want others to, we want to be respectful. What's happening in the Supreme Court is not sustainable. Something's going to give. I promise you that. That's the one promise I can make. It's not sustainable. With all this transformation energy coming up in 2025, 2026 and beyond, it's not sustainable. What we're going through now will not be what we're going through in a year. But we got to get through this time, and you get through it by not giving into the fear and moving forward. Volunteer, make the calls, talk to your family, watch Susan, get a reading, whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Yeah, because we're on the conveyor belt. We're on the freeway. We're going through it anyway. And we want to all be healthy and happy and okay on the other side. And I just want to say this because I know that I just know my viewers, and I talked about Biden potentially having some kind of health event. I have always seen Trump having a health event. Now, astrologically, his health, I think he has something around his health right now, but I think towards the election, his health, his astrology looks good. It's just like Dabney said. But I feel like he
He may
gets
not make
taken
it
out.
to, yeah, he may not make it to the election either.
Yeah,
He's not
exactly.
doing well either. Now, he has
Right.
Jupiter in his 10th house in Gemini, which would favor things, but it's also overdoing. So, it seems
Okay.
fortunate, but he is prone to going to extremes. And he has Pluto, which again, we've talked about how Pluto can offer challenges in his house of health. So he's sick. He has, a degree of dementia. There's things going on for 45 for sure. I don't, Biden's chart looks a little bit more like he's just going to kind of go. It's much more like not out in the world and not like ambition and achieving things. It's much more like kind of internal and much more like connecting with family and healing around family. So, we can take what we will of that. I can't really say who's going to win, but I know that 45 will not win in the end.
Right.
What we have to go through between now and then, hard to know. But, on my own YouTube channel, I did a whole video about fear and
Nice.
how we don't give in to the fear, because I think
Nice.
the biggest takeaway is that it's going to be okay. It is going to be okay. Like, just, you vote, you pay attention, you talk to people, but it's bigger than we are. There's synchronistic events happening. Like, Biden was fine the next day. He was crushing it on the campaign trail. Why are things going the way they're going? We
Right.
have to kind of look at that.
Right. I love that. I think that's super helpful. And thanks everybody for tuning in. And you can find Dabney at lawlessastrology.com. And she does do readings. And as you can tell, you're pretty much going to have your socks knocked right off of you if you get a reading from her, because she's very good. I mean, I just love how grounded, no nonsense, and clear and practical, and I just love it, and knowledgeable. Right. And also she has her own YouTube channel. So please check out. Is your YouTube channel also Lawless Astrology, or is it?
Yep.
Yes.
Lawless Astrology, LAWLESS, Lawless.
LAWLES. Okay. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dabney, for coming on today, for helping us understand all of this. I hope you'll come back again and help us understand more things that are happening, because knowledge is power. That's just all I can tell you guys. And I love what she says about fear. It's absolutely so true. So thank you so much for coming on, and we'll see everybody real soon. Take really good care.
Thank you, Susan. Appreciate it.
You are so welcome. For entertainment purposes only.